The Ethereum community is much stronger. It's just temporarily demotivated. I still feel very, very much that pain that all the users feel. Absolutely no chance that DeFi will not dominate all the global markets. It will be there. It will happen on Ethereum.
Hi there, from EthCC here in Cannes. We are celebrating 10 years of Ethereum and we are exploring the future of Ethereum. It's a fantastic opportunity to chat to Tomasz Stanczak, who's the co-executive director of the Ethereum Foundation, a new role for you. Let's start off there, Tomasz. What's it been like stepping into this role, being sort of a North Star for the Ethereum ecosystem over the last 6 months?
So the last 6 months, obviously the beginning of the year, a bit bumpy with a lot of criticism, but I think the changes were already happening as just sometimes you have like social media criticizing something that's already moving in the right direction. Mm-hmm. So me joining in March was just continuation of the process that the board started many months ago, I think September last year.
Obviously, there's been a lot of criticism directed at the foundation, which is, I mean, we could talk at length about that, but at what stage was there sort of a realization that these new next generation blockchains have come around and Ethereum needs to do something to either catch up or accelerate the speed of change to match what the rest of the industry is doing?
I wouldn't like to immediately accept there's realization that there is a new generation and something suddenly you have to accelerate. Looking at the US markets where Solana is focusing on the solutions for financial trading there. Look at Vitalik's comments at the days when Solana was struggling. He was saying that there is good solid development there. Mm-hmm. So people knew that something good might be coming. And just the question was maybe how Ethereum will be perceived and how much of pressure there will be for Ethereum to go in that direction. And then realization that it's a bit harder to operate and show and clarify in a message, in the communication. That's the combination of Ethereum values and the quality of technology, that there are some sacrifices that cannot be made. Mm-hmm. And those are components, properties of Ethereum that keeps going for years after years after years without stopping, and with attracting the institutions that are thinking very long term, that they can deploy and they can either control the L2 or they'll be able to just simply always expect the L1 to be independent, neutral, globally neutral.
When you look at the landscape between the Ethereum L1 and L2s, obviously there was a massive shift to bring scale and throughput through L2s. I asked Joe Lubin last year, like, at what stage do things become a bit too disjointed and fractured? And how do you bring things back? Has that been a big focus for the Ethereum Foundation and the leadership in general?
Yeah, I think the big focus now is on the interop, on the tooling, and on the standards, and accelerating that idea that all the chains around Ethereum should feel very much like a single ecosystem, and it should be very natural for the users to transfer between them, to use all the applications that just flow for different chains if they need to. Mm-hmm. We still really appreciate the effort on the BD, on the marketing, on onboarding users from all the different L2s, and they should have their branding, they should have their ecosystems, they should have their niches, they should have their explorations, innovations, and so on. And really, Ethereum benefits from that so much, and it will continue. That feeling of the entire ecosystem being disjointed, maybe, like sometimes I think that it starts with people, how they take it, whether they can internalize that multiple brands still orbit around the Ethereum as a chain that is really anchoring. And I think it's more with how people feel than how technology is constructed. Sure, there are clear challenges on presenting how the fee structure, data availability, how all of this works together, how the interop mechanisms work. It's just that a few years ago, it was really hard to predict how all the L2s will be evolving. Mm-hmm. And now we have much more clarity. I felt very like that UX interop was really the biggest challenge of them all. And now I start feeling better about it.
I mean, I remember interacting with like Tomasz back in the day. I remember trying Uniswap when it first came out, and like it was a clunky experience. So that's why I asked these questions, because
it still is. Yeah. So I've been playing with various applications and bridging between chains in the last week. So the help is coming more from understanding all the demos that are there more like on the testnet side and with the teams that are building something that show the alpha solutions, but not from production environments. Like when I go there, and I still feel very, very much that pain that all the users feel.
When you get feedback from the wider Ethereum community, whether it's validators on the L1 or operators on the L2, what's the biggest pain point right now, and where do people want to see things go? Because my question to Joe Lubin was like, if I'm going to stake 32 ETH and earn a certain return at running a validator versus locking up a load of value on an L2, would it not just be worth my while to do that? And then what's the incentive in the long term for people to continue running validators and keep things sort of centered on the L1?
Home stakers are thinking about, do I really align with the values of Ethereum? Do I stake because of that? I don't think in most of the cases when you talk to home stakers, they don't do that for the yield, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's the large institutions like capital allocators that are doing that for the yield, and they provide security to the network. And then they probably look at the network and they think from a different perspective of like what are the risks, how stable the ecosystem is, and so risk, all of the potential risks related to their staking, and then they choose Ethereum usually for that reason, that it's simply less risky because of all the security efforts, because of all the design of the network, the centralization. So they think there is less governance risk, there is less risk of slashing, there's less risk of the large security events or hacks. So that's their decision. So it's a majority of like concerns are we going still in the same direction? And we keep responding saying, yes, we're accelerating, but we want to have both eat cake and have cake. I think that's what the top teams are doing.
When you look at the landscape of the other layer one blockchains, is there a lot of conversation internally about what Solana is doing, what Sui is doing, what Aptos is doing, what's good about those user experiences? Do you sort of like, I mean, we work in a media company, we do competitor analysis. Do you guys do competitor analysis?
Yes, I'm trying to do more and more of it. Like encourage conversations, also like the open conversation invitations to the people that are leading other protocols. To talk to our strategy teams, to share, to exchange ideas from the business development side, the growth, partnerships, convincing everyone in the ecosystem to be very well aware of what is being built. That's a bit more effort now, I think. It's just sending people hints. Look at this. It looks interesting.
Yeah.
How others are building communities.
Do you think like Solana and some of the other L1s have done better just at community building, perhaps in the last 2 or 3 years?
So yeah, we've heard a lot about the super team, but then we also thought about how all the Ethereum events are working. And then on one side, you see that there is a momentum there of bringing new builders, but also we go to lots of communities. They say, we are experts on this, and the Ethereum community is much stronger. It's just temporarily demotivated because of probably that worries from the beginning of the year where they thought, so where we are going. Now, when you reinvigorate those communities, that suddenly you realize how much of a sleeping giant it is this year.
Vitalik has kind of openly said over the years, like, I don't want to be the main character here. I want to take a step back. He came back into the fold to give some fresh direction and shake things up at the Ethereum Foundation. How important was that? And do you still see him playing a pivotal role in the next 5 years?
Yeah, I think it's always very active. It will be always very hard for him to not be active in Ethereum and thinking about Ethereum as a product, research area, as a set of values. And you see that's I think his way of guiding others was just like whenever he realizes people go in the wrong direction, he'll start being very, very loud about the topic. So I think this is also the way of communicating between us, like him and the board and me and the executive. Instead of me hearing like do this, do that, I just simply listen to what he talks about on stage as everyone else. And that tells me like, all right, yeah, sure, this is the guidance of the Ethereum values. This is a reminder. As an executive, it's very easy to drift away and start building your own vision. And I think it's very important to be humble and think this is not your role, really.
Yeah.
The people, the ecosystem community wants to go in that direction, and you just want to make it very efficient.
I had a fascinating conversation with Sandeep from Polygon about 6 months ago, and we were talking about ZK proofs and potentially starting to settle on Bitcoin as opposed to Ethereum, because if you can argue the merits for a more secure, decentralized blockchain between Bitcoin and Ethereum. And he kind of said, if it does get to that point, we could just settle on Bitcoin and do it that way. Is that something that's ever been spoken about internally?
Many participants of the ecosystem, they will look at Starknet and say, oh, they're at the forefront of thinking how to settle on Bitcoin, how to do Bitcoin layer 2s. And it's extremely encouraging that it's within Ethereum ecosystem. And I think this brings great opportunity to bring a lot of Bitcoin assets to Ethereum. I think that in the future, seeing Ethereum as a DeFi space for all the BTC or the real assets, all the stable coins together, this is what makes it so strong. It'll be really hard to ever oppose the small, like, decentralized idea and the direction, the governance that comes from the ecosystem.
My final question to you, are you optimistic about the future of Ethereum and perhaps more so than you were a year ago?
Similarly, probably. So I think obviously I have to sometimes sound like inspirational, motivational. I try not to be overexcited, trying to be realistic. If you think, is it DeFi versus TradFi? I would say absolutely no chance that DeFi will not dominate all the global markets. It will be there. It will happen on Ethereum. The pessimists might be general about technology and all the challenges of AI, like how quickly we can ensure that the decentralization solutions, privacy solutions are extremely difficult, but they're very delicate. They're hard to design right. How quickly we can deliver that before we have the serious challenges of centralized AIs.
Tomasz, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.